Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Zotto. I am your Regional Assistant Vice Chancellor of Student Success for the Enrollment and Transitions areas here at the USF St. Pete campus. I am also our Student Ombuds. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what an Ombuds is and does. So first, I want to share about the mission of my office, and it's to facilitate fair and equitable resolution processes that promote student success. I adhere to the International Ombudsman Association standards of practice, and our ethics include confidentiality. I am completely confidential. A student can come to me and talk to me about any topic, and they can be assured that unless they ask me to engage another office to inquire about something on their behalf, nothing that they come to me will be shared. I'm impartial. I'm neither an advocate for the student or USF, and I'm informal. So when I'm in this role, I am not receiving notice on behalf of the university. I'm also independent when I'm in this role. So my fellow ombuds, our faculty and staff ombudsman is Steve Prevost in Tampa, and of course he serves all of USF faculty and staff. And my fellow student ombud is Jen Schneider at the Tampa campus. We do work with students in all three campuses and, of course, our students who are in medical school. We report up to the highest levels. We aggregate data. We share trends, but we do not ever discuss individual cases and individual students with any party, faculty, staff, or administration. So what is an ombud? It's kind of a funny name, but it's a term going back to about the 1800s, and it was from the Swedish Parliament. They were an observer to the government, and their job was to safeguard individuals' rights. And so the what an organizational ombuds does is really to provide a safe space. So I'll give you an example. A student could be accused of academic integrity violation. They usually freak out. Many don't believe they did anything, and others don't, they own it. So they could tell me that they did cheat. I am not in a place to judge. I will not disclose that. I do not get involved in any conduct proceedings. I'm a safe space where they can talk about the issue, their concern. They can explore options. So how do I interpret the policy? What do all these different things mean? What do I do? How does the appeal process work? How does a hearing work? My job is to really help them understand all of their options and also to explore different types, whether informal, such as just having the conversation, say, with a faculty member, a staff member, a department, all the way to what the grievance options and formal resolution options are for the students. Finally, through our annual reporting, we do create a report for the student ombuds visitors, and I'll tell you a few data points later on, but we do aggregate systemic concerns to university leadership. So here are just a few things that I put up sharing like why they come see me. So maybe they just don't know where to go. So I have a little button that says where to go when you don't know where to go. I think of it as the office of last resort. I often work with students to help them understand things like a policy or procedure. They might feel uncomfortable going to a faculty member to discuss a grade or just have a discussion more broadly. Sometimes they find me because they're intimidated or they've never had to do their own form of advocacy on their own. They always had a parent in the room with them, or their parent was the one who complained to a teacher or administrator. And now they're doing it themselves. They just don't know how to have that conversation and articulate their feelings and concerns. And so we do a lot of discussions about that. A lot of times they're just not aware of a policy and how to interpret a policy. Um, they don't read the syllabus in many cases. And so sometimes we just read through the syllabus and say, okay, here's what your professor is outlining as the steps to appeal a grade. Let's start here, have a conversation with your professor. Here are the next steps. So we do a lot of just review and discussion, again, in a very confidential, impartial way. So I spend time listening. I mean, I think sometimes students just look for somebody who's willing to listen to them and they feel better. We have a lot of discussions about how to have good communication. I might help them gather facts about their situation. So let's just say it's a transactional issue. It could be something along the lines of maybe involving paperwork. that was sent to admissions or financial aid, or maybe there's something that they completed in one office, but it takes a few weeks and they're just not getting answers and updates. Every so often, things like that happen. And if the student gives me permission, I will engage with other departments to try to figure out what's happening with the student's account or form, what have you. And that would be really the only time I would ever um, give out the student's name, is because I'm trying to triage and understand the situation to help them out. And then finally, I'm going to go on the next one. I want to tell you what I can't do. So I'm not an advocate. I'm not an advocate, and I'm not the legal counsel here. So I'm a neutral or impartial third party to help them understand their options. I don't make binding decisions. I don't mandate policies, and I can't change policies. But we can make recommendations if we see maybe policies aren't being implemented equitably and consistently. Again, we don't solve problems unrelated to USF, and we do not receive formal notice at all. So let me tell you a little bit about the visitors to USF St. Petersburg campus, and we call our students visitors. We call, if you go visit the faculty staff ombud, Steve Prevost, you would be considered a visitor as well. Across USF, all of our campuses, we had 552 cases, 49 cases for this campus, St. Petersburg. I believe out of the 552, 7 were Sarasota Manatee for this last year. So faculty, we do get some concerns. Sometimes it's response time, whether sometimes it's just unrealistic response times, right? I mean, it could be that they sent the email Friday night at 7 and they were expecting something over the weekend, which isn't always realistic. And sometimes it is a realistic. It's been 2-3 weeks. Sometimes we get questions about teaching style, techniques, grades, technology. Some students, they really care about you as faculty and they want you to be a better professor. And they will come to me and say, I don't know what to do, but I really wish my professor would use the technology better. And they don't want to say anything. So they find their way to me, which is always of interest. So academic administration. So we get a lot of questions, concerns about course availability, modality, location, concerns about driving to Tampa if that's the only option. Academic integrity as a process, as I mentioned earlier. The ARC process, that is a frequent one that they'll come to me confused, concerned, and we'll talk through that. Financial need, financial aid. We have incredible food and housing insecurity among some of our students. I mean, I had some stories over this past year, and then of course, if there's a natural disaster, what have you, we often see an uptick in folks finding us. They're struggling with the cost of living in the area. They're struggling with the cost of everything. And so what I would say is that if you have a student who's struggling, I'm one option. Of course, send them to financial aid, but I am an option. Cumbersome processes, service quality, responses. Sometimes they just disagree with a decision. International student support. That is another one, and that's very specific to our campus, but it's also interesting at USF because international students make up about 12% of our population, but about 20% of our cases last year were international students. A couple of fun numbers, 45% of the 552 USF were FTICs, 61% of the 552 female, 46% of our cases were resolved informally. And then some of them, maybe there was no real resolution. It was just sort of coaching and helping students understand something. And then others, there were some, of course, who ended up grieving formally. And I mentioned that we 20% international, 37% of the cases came from CAS students, which is, of course, the largest college, so it doesn't surprise us. And then finally, 14% of cases last year were from veterans or military connected in some way. I just wanted to give you a final slide showing you how to make a referral. If you want to send students our way, Jen and I work with Risa Blake, Jen Schneider and I. Risa is the admin. She does the intake for students across USF. You can email ombuds at usf.edu or refer your student to the ombuds email or phone on the screen. If you are a faculty or staff member and would like to speak with Steve Prevost confidentially to have an ombuds meeting with Steve because there's something you're dealing with about policies, processes, or just want to talk with somebody who's impartial and informal and confidential, Steve Prevost is your staff and faculty ombuds, and the email is just slightly different. So I thank all of you for spending a few minutes with me as your St. Pete campus student ombuds. Again, my name is Laura Zuppo, and if you have any other questions, please let me know.